Okay, let us start. A very good afternoon to all of you. My name is Tanmay Mahapatra. I'm the Director for the Data and Learning with Care India Solutions for Sustainable Development. On behalf of the Family Planning, Monitoring, Learning and Evaluation Consortium, I'm pleased to welcome all of you to our fourth webinar in this series of webinars. This webinar is titled as Understanding the Phenomenon of Rising and Consistent Use of Traditional Methods in Uttar Pradesh state of India. Thanks for joining us today. This will be a learning and discussion session about the traditional method use patterns. The topic is very interesting, especially in the context of the upcoming new methods and tireless efforts by the governments on family planning and method use. As Family Planning MLE Consortium, we conducted a debate in the International Conference for Family Planning ICFP November 2022 at Pattaya on how FP programs should address the increase in use of traditional methods in Asia. The debate was a huge success. That means it was really a debate. We hope to make this webinar an interactive one and welcome questions and comments from all of you as we progress. A very brief introduction to this FPMLE consortium. It was constituted about 8 years ago with a goal to provide grounded evidence on efforts to improve family planning in India, with particular reference to states like Bihar and Uttar Pradesh. The consortium, led by the Population Council, brings together technical support units led by Care India Solutions for Sustainable Development in Bihar and the India Health Action Trust in Uttar Pradesh, the International Center for Research on Women, and the Center on Gender Equity and Health, UC San Diego, to collectively support the family planning program with data-driven evidence. Today's session will focus on understanding the patterns of rise in traditional method use in Uttar Pradesh, identifying the consistent versus sporadic users, and linking the adoption of traditional method with women's knowledge, access to service, or information, and a deeper understanding of the stages in the reproductive journey that led to the selection of traditional methods for the users. Just to give you all some background, UP is one of the few Indian states which has seen a rise in the use of traditional methods of family planning. According to the National Family Health Survey Round 5 data, the use of traditional method in UP increased from 13.8% in NFHS 4, that is referring to 2015-16 data, to 17.9% referring to the 2019-20 data. While India's family planning journey is marked by the successful completion of India's commitment made to FP 2020 goals, which is achieving 54.3% modern contraceptive prevalence and 74% demand made by the year 2020, attention to the rising use of traditional methods is probably the need of this hour. I want to introduce our speaker. Our speaker today is Dr. Ravi Prakash, who is the Senior Deputy Director of Monitoring and Evaluation and Operations Research Domain of the Uttar Pradesh Technical Support Unit, implemented by the University of Manitoba and India Health Action Trust. He provides strategic leadership in designing and delivering community and facility-based sample surveys as a support to the health programs of the government of Uttar Pradesh. Dr. Ravi has been playing a key role in establishing mechanisms to improve the quality of existing government data systems and supporting the inclusion of survey results in government decision-making processes. Dr. Ravi has completed his MPhil and PhD in Population Studies from International Institute for Population Sciences Mumbai, and has 14 plus years of experience in planning, designing, managing, and monitoring of large studies and setting up monitoring and evaluation systems for large-scale interventions. I also have the opportunity to introduce our esteemed discussant, Professor Ram, former Director and Senior Professor, International Institute for Population Sciences, Mumbai, and he's an independent researcher and consultant of population issues. He recently advised a study in Bangladesh on prevention of child marriage in Bangladesh for Commonwealth of Learning, Vancouver, Canada, and worked as senior advisor to the Population Council India. He is currently working as a consultant to the UNFPA India on low fertility in this country. Professor Ram is an awardee of the prestigious Rockefeller Foundation Scholarship. He is the architect of the district level household surveys in India and has supervised all 4 rounds of DLHS as the principal investigator. He was the principal coordinator of National Family Health Survey before retiring from his services at IIPS. Professor Ram has published over 150 articles in international and national journals. His work mainly focuses around indirect estimates of fertility, mortality, especially maternal mortality, sex-selective abortion, sexual and reproductive health, and quality assessment of civil registration system in India. Now I would like to introduce our session today. It will be a 50-minute session starting after 1 minute. We'll have Dr. Ravi to present for the first 20 minutes, followed by Professor Ram sharing his views on the presentations and generating insights to carry. And then that will take about 10 minutes. And then we will jump into the question answer sessions by audience in the last 20 minutes. We request all of you to paste your question answers in the question answer window or in the chat during the time of presentation, if you like to, and during the time of discussion also. And we look forward to a very interesting and engaging session. Once again, requesting audience to please continue to share your questions in either of the windows, question answer or the chat window. We'll take them up after speakers sharing their views. Over to Ravi.
Thank you, Dr. Tanmay. There was some technical glitch, so I'm going to present my presentation. Just give me a minute, please. Hope my screen is visible.
Yes.
Okay, so thanks again to the Family Planning Learning and Evaluation Consortium and also to the distinguished discussion, Professor Ram, for having the time to and be part of this meeting. As Dr. Tanmay mentioned, this presentation is about understanding the phenomena of rising the traditional method use and how consistently women are using in the state of UP. I'll start the discussion by mentioning that we as India as a country has already achieved our aspirational FP 2020 goal of MCPR, which was 54.3. But we do see a lot of state level variations, and many of you have seen the data from the NFHS 5, which is depicted here. It shows that while states have moved in terms of contraceptive prevalence rate and modern contraceptive prevalence rate, but the use of traditional method have also seen a rise. So the darker shade shows you the improvement of more than 10 percentage point between NFHS 4 and 5. You see a lot many states, including such as, if I talk about the bigger states, the states like Odisha, Uttar Pradesh, and also some of the other states have seen a rise in the traditional method. While the data from the NFHS offers us to analyze the who are these women and what is the pattern of use, but here we are using the data from the integrated family planning survey, which we did in Uttar Pradesh as a part of program monitoring. And we try to understand some of the key questions like, who are these traditional method users? How are they different from the modern method users? How do they kind of compare if we see their knowledge, the areas where they belong to, the accessibility or the availability of the services and their preferences? And also whether these women are using this traditional method consistently or as a stopgap arrangement for some time. And we, based on the learnings from the quantitative survey, we also did a qualitative study, which got just recently completed, to deeply understand what is the women's reproductive journey so far as the method is concerned. Though I will not be able to present all the findings, but I have taken a few slides from there, which actually says that if we are looking into the three group of women, one who are consistently using the traditional method, one who got transitioned from the traditional method to the modern method, and other one from the modern method to the traditional method, what are the key aspects that are kind of differentiating between these three group of women, and are there any further programmatic learnings from that? So the UP integrated family planning survey, which is a 360-degree survey where we not only included the women but also the service provider, the ASHA, ANMs, and also the nearest facility were assessed, where we looked into the availability of the facility services, family planning services, and also had an interaction with the service provider to gauge a complete knowledge about what women are saying and how the services are provided. Are these matching or not? This survey covered around 12,100 women, 100 currently married women and the reproductive age group, and along with 400 and odd ASHA, 300 and odd ANMs, etc. Plus, we also interviewed the counselors who actually in UP are involved to provide the family planning counseling services, etc., to understand, what do they think about the use of the family planning method in UP is concerned. The qualitative inquiry, it is limited to the 4 districts, and these districts are coming from the 4 divisions, which is Saharanpur, Gonda, having high traditional method use, and Jhansi and Mirzapur, which shows the low traditional method use in this study. This includes the women, the husbands, their mother-in-law, and also the service providers, largely the ASHA, because they are the one who provided the services in the community, and also the ANMs who deliver the family planning services through the village health and nutrition days on a monthly basis. So the survey, the qualitative piece was done to have an understanding about the young women and the older women, and also 3 segments about which I spoke: the currently using traditional method, those who resume using traditional method, so they might be using the modern method in between, and those who switch to the modern method. Now let us see what some of these findings are depicting. So this graph is basically from the FP survey, where as compared to the NFHS of 17.9%, we got around 23-24% women are using the traditional method. And let us see this, what are those 4 questions that we raised, how this seems from this data. First and foremost thing is that UP has a diversity, regional diversity or heterogeneity so far as the method use is concerned. So if you see the bottom region, which is the Bundelkhand region, we have the predominant use of sterilization. The condoms and traditional methods are mixed in, both eastern and some part of the Terai belt. Now, whether these women who are using the traditional method are different than those who are modern method users. So if we see their profile, we find that across the age, women are using the traditional method, using more, but that is not the case. We do see, for the parity, which is again correlating with the age, that except the zero parity, almost all the parity women are equally using the traditional method. Education wise, we didn't find any difference, and a little higher proportion of the non-Hindu women were using the traditional method. If we look into the modern method, how the profile differs, we don't see much of the difference in the pattern as we observed in the traditional method. Specifically, there has been a lot of talk in the past that education play a lot of role. Educated women use the modern method, uneducated use the traditional method, but that doesn't appear to be case here. So apparently, there is not much difference in the characteristics or the profile, except a few which are seen here. Now, the second question is that whether the knowledge are different. So are the modern method users have better knowledge about the methods compared to the traditional method users? So we saw that the half of the traditional method users have the correct knowledge about the ovulatory cycle. That means when they are safe, when they are not safe, when are the dates for their, or when they can have and when they cannot have the kind of sex with their husband. Which was again 45% among the married, the modern method users. If we see their knowledge, if we compare these two groups with the knowledge about the other method, so we see that both traditional method and modern method users, around 80% of them were aware of condom or having correct knowledge about the condom. They have the remaining rest of the 20% had the knowledge about the pills and injectables. So we are not finding much difference in terms of the difference in the knowledge of the other method among those who are using traditional and the modern method. The third most important question which comes is that whether these differences are due to the changes, due to the differences in the availability. So for example, are the in absence of the family planning services, whether women use traditional method as a choice. And this is again data coming from the two surveys in 2018 and 21 in the same facilities, 289 facilities. And we are finding a significant rise in the availability of the method. So if you see the right-hand side of the column, your newer methods like injectables and antras increased to 78% from 17%. You have a significant increase in the new methods like Chaya, which is a non-hormonal method, up to 64%. And rest of the methods are also available, in more than 70% of the facilities. Even in each facility, if you see the average number of the modern contraceptive that is available has also seen an increase from 3.5 to 4.7. So again, that doesn't seem to be a case that unavailability has led to the women to use the traditional method. Now, the most important is that this is then preference, because women are preferring. And here is the data when we see that the 69% of the current traditional method users never used any modern method. And also the same is so for the modern method users. So that means those who are using traditional method, they are fine with it, they are using it consistently. Similarly, those who are using a traditional modern method, they are the one who are using. And we also tried to see from this data that who are those who are current traditional method users, with which method they started their reproductive life. So we see that current traditional method user, 81% have started with the traditional method itself. So they are continuing with that, whereas 20% were those who started with some other method, a modern method, and now they are on the traditional method. So similar cases on the traditional method, the modern method also, where we see 66% continuity. And we try to look the same data from the 3 years reproductive journey, where we see that this is the cohort of traditional method users between 2018 to 2021 at the time of survey. So about 70% of the traditional methods we see as consistent users, of these 70%, 58% were continuously using, whereas 12% came back. And the switching to the modern method was 6% and 4% to the sterilization. So are these pattern different for the modern method users? So we analyzed the same way for the modern reversible method, and we found that again 75% of the 75% of the modern methods are continuing with that, with 30% of them have gone to some other or adopted some other method, but they again came back to the modern method. So this shows that there is a continuity or consistency in the method use, be it traditional method and be it modern method. And some of the earlier hypothesis which is available in the some of the literatures, that these women are those who are using the traditional method are the one who alter their choices based on the availability or based on the access to the services. But that doesn't seem to be a major case in case of UP, from at least from this data. We also looked into what is their intention to use further. And in both these cases, for the traditional method and for the modern method, we found that a majority of them, almost 80% of them, wants to continue with the method which they are using. So it cannot be just by chance. It is there appears to be a well thought of, well decided choice which they are using, and that's how they want to continue it in future also. Some of the reasons why they want to continue with the same method which they have intended to, and the side effects, ease of use, cost incurred, etc. are the reasons for both traditional method and modern method. It is important to see the difference, the cost piece which is coming, despite of being these methods provided free of cost through the public health system. Still, a lot more women might be inclining towards that, because the cost, they feel that the cost is one of the parameter. But on the other hand, those who are using traditional method, they are finding it easy to use, as well as those who are using the modern method, they are finding it easy to use. So it is not about that, not mainly about that they have got some kind of experience or some adverse effect due to which there is a larger shift or that kind of thing. So since this data didn't allow us to look much deeper about what are the context and what are the other things which is kind of affecting the method used, we took help of this qualitative data to present some of the brief summary of the findings which is coming. Though this slide looks a little heavy, but I'll just try to summarize it. So these are the women who have consistently used traditional method, and what are the key emerging triggers for the adoption of the traditional method. So first and foremost important is the social influence, which is bringing the familiarity and trust to the method. So in the community, the qualitative finding shows that in the community where the traditional method use is high, there are successful use cases. So that means the other women within the community are using the method, and they are kind of using it quite effectively. And even leave out the neighborhood, etc. Within the family also, we found that the elder sister-in-law or bhabi, or those are the women who have been using this method, and they are sometimes a propagator of this method for the women. Also, the advocacy of traditional method by FLW, it is not intentional, but again, since that whole community is largely using the method, they doesn't want to be a deviant in terms of advocating the modern method, because they have a fear of lack of acceptance, etc. So they also want to continue, they also want to suggest the same thing, or in a way they are validating what method women are using, and rather than trying hard to change it. Also, the cognitive ease and understanding of the mechanism and the effect, I think to talk it in a simpler way, The traditional method is being assumed by women as a natural method where they see a low or adverse impact on their health and fertility. So whenever they want, they can have the children. They need not to wait for the modern method to resume their fertility, have the 3 months or 6 months time. So everything is there in control. And that's what is also coming in the last point, is the sense of agency over their own mind and body. So the narrative which is clearly coming across is that even the frontline workers are seeing women who are using traditional method as a more disciplined and controlled, because they know, when to have the sex and when not to have. And these all are calculative depending on their cycles, etc. When are the safe days, etc. So use of the calendar method in that sense becomes important. And this is also coming as an important reason, among those couples who have a better interspousal communication. So that means, sometimes what it is happening is that these couples are deciding, based on the day, which is not a risky day. So far as I will use the risky day, in terms of the chances of getting pregnant. So they have this discussion, and thereby they are during those days, they are during the safe days, they are trying to have the sex, but rest of the day they are controlled. So far as the reasons for the rejection of other method, why the traditional method users are rejecting other methods. So one of the things is that the negative words of mouth. So like chemicals are used as a harmful thing. The fear of adverse health impact, like if you are using the injection, this will happen, that will happen. And then also the easy to blame for the failure in these contexts. So for example, if a woman who is there in those settings where traditional method uses high, and if she's using the modern method, and in case if there is a failure, she's not going to invite a lot of blames on her that, okay, look, you have examples of the successful examples of the traditional method use, and why you have gone for the modern method, for the other modern method. And the most important thing is also coming is the cognitively overloaded, fact about the modern method. Like, for example, though we have the basket of choices, have various methods, but at the same time, you have the different way of adoption of these methods. So like, for example, if you're talking about pills, you have like these many days you have to eat the pill. If you miss the pill, what happens? Similarly, if you have injection, then when to have the injection, what is the periodicity. If you want to use chaya anantara, which is the centrum and non-hormonal, you have a lot of things to remember, that which was the first day, how many days you have to give the gap, then the next day you have to adopt it for a month, then another 3 months you have to do. So there's a lot of things which women has to understand, which she has to remember, and that becomes a complexity for it. So a better choice is that use the traditional method. Similarly, if we see the current traditional methods who have used the modern method in past. So again, some of the things which is triggers for adoption of the traditional method among the modern method users are this positive words of mouth, sense of positive interpersonal communication, that, okay, if they are using the traditional method, there's a more sense of faith in husband. Also the cost, etc., the labor, right? If you're using the IUCD, for example, there is a possibility that you will be out of your work for some time. Again, they don't want to have those kind of things. And also why they are rejecting the modern method which they have used. So acknowledging the possibility of the traditional method failure. So sometimes it may lead to the unplanned pregnancy, but also a few cases where the blame game happened about the method itself, about which I spoke. The current modern method users who use the traditional method in past, so what we are seeing is that they feel they see this modern method as an extra protection. And in many of the cases, these modern methods are not used exclusively, like especially those who are using the traditional the condoms or pills. They have the mix of the both the condoms as well as the traditional method being used interchangeably. And also, in few cases where the Antra was found as long-term fix compared to the OCP, And that has happened when she has visited to the VHND. So probably their program exposure is better compared to the other. What we saw also from the frontline workers. So where is the issue with the service delivery? So one key thing is that, in envisioning their role in the family planning program, so far as the FLWs are concerned. So specifically the ASHA, and the fact which I spoke is that looking into the regional context, the cultural values, social norm, etc., they often, are choosing giving the information about the method, because if the community has accepted the traditional method, they don't want to be a deviant there with suggesting so much of the modern method, and this is mainly to avoid the community rejection. The second important thing which is coming is that whether they're how much prioritizing their family planning program within the larger scope of work, considering their other thing, probably family planning is stood at a back seat. Then the knowledge gaps in the modern method and limited transfer of the knowledge from A&M to ASHA. So we are clearly finding that as compared to the A&M, ASHA's, A&M are a bit more aware of that. They are more technically aware of that. However, there is a not complete transfer of information from A&M to ASHA, which again put ASHA at some more little aware of various method, and thereby if they are even pushing a lot, it is about the condom which is being distributed, and also cognitive complexity of the modern method even among the FLW. So if they have to tell about the methods, they have to tell about the their frequency, their benefits, their side effects, and so on and so forth thing. And somehow they feel that though it came in some of the interview, that they have a language to speak for the traditional method, like gharelu tarike, gharelu nukse, but the same thing is not available for the modern method. And that's why the conversation, basically, especially with the young married women, that becomes difficult for them to have. There is also some sort of imagery, things within the FLW itself. So they feel that they see the traditional method users as more educated, because she can keep track of her menstrual cycles. She can remember her safe days. She knows that when are the unsafe days. So for her, she becomes much more educated, smarter, because she has an option, and also a better relationship with husband, because they both engage in the communication about the method, and they have a lot of trust among each other. On the other hand, if you see the modern method users, so they see it's a more activity among the urbanized women, and also it is more kind of, they have sometimes they also feel that, okay, since they don't know about the traditional method, and that's why they might have chosen the modern method. So that's this is an important thing from the program, that where they have to focus so far as even building the skills of the ASHAs are concerned. And also, the kind of relying on the modern method, because they have maybe better information, communication, etc., maybe exposure, which is coming also as one of the thing about the technology. And this led us to kind of think through is that how the program. So there is a what Tanmay said in the beginning, there was a debate in the family planning conference, is that whether the traditional method users have to be converted in the modern method, or we leave it them as it is. But the important point here is that considering all these strong preferences, and also the notion about the use, and with the confidence that yes, they can manage it, it appears to be difficult strategy or difficult thing to convert. But probably what can be done is that, with strengthening your institutional service delivery, and also some of addressing the individual bias, at least those who are entering into the reproductive age, or maybe the young women, can be more motivated towards the use of the modern method, to with the method efficacy, etc. So I'll stop my presentation here. I hope I was in time. But I would sincerely like to thank the government of UP, and also the National Health Mission for providing a clearance to do this study, and also all our consortium partners. to provide inputs time to time at different stages, and also the funder for supporting this financially. So thank you, and over to you, Dr. Tanmay.
Thank you, Dr. Ravi, for taking us through this complex but interesting journey of traditional methods through the minds of different users and non-users and the change and all of the stuff. Now I'd like to request Professor Ram to share his reflections, comments, observations, as well as insights to take forward. Over to you, Professor Ram.
Thank you, and good afternoon to all. And is it possible to remove this sharing?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. First of all, I think I must say that very excellent presentation by Ravi, and a lot of information which is needed, I think, for decision making are available in the presentation for the government, for the program people. So I would like to give my point of view, some of the points which I think he has touched it, but probably needs a little elaboration. First of all, we know traditional methods are always not counted in the program.
Dr. Ram,
Yes.
requesting you to please switch on your camera.
It is switched off. Switch on.
Yeah, none of us can see. Yeah, now it's there, sir. Thank you, sir.
Oh,
Please
thank
continue.
you. Okay, thank you. I thought my voice is okay without seeing my face. So, so the traditional methods have been, I think, neglected in a way that they got less attention in the literature, research, even compared to abortion or changing pattern of abstinence. And always, I think the very sweeping statement has been given for such a rejection is the less effectiveness of the method. That has been going on, because if you either look at Bongard's model or you look at any other framework for fertility analysis, you find such kind of statement. And therefore, globally, many times, traditional method users are considered as unmet need group, and they need to be converted to modern method of contraception. But I think the current presentation clearly indicate that we need to rethink on such issues, because traditional method is not rare. Globally, if you see, either go historically, I think European country transitions when modern method was not available, I think they have been one way or others using some kind of traditional method. Whole of Africa, particularly Central Africa, has a very high use of traditional method. And India, I think we have West Bengal, maybe Manipur. Many states, I think, have been showing since the NFHS started the use of traditional method. And West Bengal, we can see though there is a decline, but still I think it's very high use of traditional method. And in that context, I thought that I would like to put it in an analytical framework given by Sterling in 1975 while explaining the determinants of fertility. And he probably gave 3 components, but I would like to see the 2 dimensions. One is the demand for birth control, and second is the cost of contraception. Many times we believe that the demand is not there or demand is there, so which is well known how it is measured in terms of unmet need. We can see that there is a demand. But low use of contraception indicate either the program outreach are some barriers which are working in between the program and the users or non-users of the family planning. And therefore, in this, I think the most important things which I feel one need to think is the cost of contraception. And in that context, we can hypothesize whether accessibility of a modern method leads to the use of traditional method. We need to try to test this hypothesis that wherever the cost of the the modern method of contraception is high, or accessibility is difficult, therefore there is a high use of traditional method of contraception. Now that need to be, I think, tested, because within the UP, I think the presentation has shown there are a few cluster of districts where the traditional method use is very high. The whole of Western UP, I think, and one in the middle bordering Nepal. So that I think hypothesis, because cost, there are financial costs. Even in traditional method, one may visualize what will be the cost. And some of the points I think the presentation has described, the social cost or opportunity cost or so on. But the most important in the traditional method cost is the involvement of male partner. I think that's the key, and one need to appreciate how and what way the male are being involved in this traditional method use, because it probably interfere with the sexual intercourse and so on. And therefore, we need to look at that what led to couple actually decision to use the traditional method, not just the women decision. I think it is the more of a couple decision to use the traditional method. And therefore, the hypothesis that suppose there is no cost involved in the modern method of contraception, and it is easily available to the population, those who need to use, whether the traditional method use will decline. That's the, I think, one point which I would like to test. That. Second point, of course, is that second point, I think, important is the effectiveness of the method. And I have been, I think, somehow, sometimes telling that traditional method, if the knowledge is very high, correct knowledge of the traditional methods are high, I think the effectiveness would be very high in that sense, because one of my PhD student long back did the similar work, traditional method use in West Bengal. Quite long back, I think she did the PhD on this topic, and she has shown that very high correct knowledge of a traditional method has very low unintended pregnancy in the population or women. So I think that's another key things which need to be emphasized, that if there is a correct knowledge not leading to unwanted or unintended pregnancy, then I think there is nothing wrong, and one need not interfere in the process of this kind of behavior in the population. So that's my second point, which I think need to be emphasized in this. And I think some slide has shown that, if I have understood correctly, 4% pregnancy, the tracking the history of this traditional method user and modern method, 4 to 5% pregnancy. I'm not sure whether that was unintended or it was desire and therefore they went for the pregnancy. So in that sense, I think one need to understand the use and context of the use of traditional method. And therefore, at this point, I would like to ask question, why particular group of district have a very high, comparatively very high use of traditional method vis-a-vis other district in the Uttar Pradesh. What differentiate those districts compared to the other districts? Even I think Lucknow and around that area, geography, we have a very high use of traditional method. We need some light with our discussion on that point in this case. So I think I would like to stop here. And if population continues with the traditional method used, despite the fact that modern methods are freely available, it has no cost, including the opportunity cost for the women. And then I think one need to think very seriously that they are using correctly, they have correct knowledge, and we need not interfere with their behavior. In fact, guide more, provide more opportunity, more knowledge to such women for more success story. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor Ram, for giving your valuable insights and reflections. We'll definitely ask Dr. Ravi to answer your question. I would like to request both Professor Ram and Dr. Ravi to switch on their videos to give the audience the kind of roundtable scenario. So first of all, thanks to all of you, and special thanks to Priya Nanda, who supported this work and actually requested Ravi to share the qualitative findings. I request Ravi to share, and this will be great over email. And now just building on, before going into the question that the geographic variations that Professor Ram asked, there is a question in the chat that from Shumoni Mukherjee, that first question was about the perception of husbands. Since involvement of husband is quite important to use traditional methods successfully, what evidence you have regarding the perception of the husband? And she has another question: what is the prevalence of contraception failure? Please, can you respond to those things, Ravi?
Thanks, Professor Ram, for your feedback, and audience for your question. So yes, the husband's role has been clearly coming out in the qualitative finding, since that was not captured in the quantitatively, but qualitatively we are seeing that, and as I have also presented in a couple of slides, that the traditional method users have a kind of quite a good discussion about using this method. So it is not that this method is opted by either of the parties, but yes, both male is also involved in the process. And because, you know, one is that in this traditional method, there's a larger control by men, you know, because, you know, if you're using the withdrawal or other method. On the same hand, or on the other hand, if you see, there is a larger control of women so far as the calendar is concerned, you know, which are the safe days and which are the non-safe days. So that's how this findings are showing that due to this communication and the discussion, they are able to more effectively use this method, over the period of time. What is the contraceptive failure rate? Okay, so it is not very high for all the methods. I think it is ranging between 3 to 4%. Even NFHS is showing between 1.7% to 2.8% contraceptive failure rate. So the failure is also mentioned by a few women who actually moved from the traditional method to the modern method. That okay, they could not, you know, maintain those cycles, etc., and thereby they move to the modern method. Whereas we have also cases where some of the women also said there is a failure in the modern method, and how to, you know, why to keep that tension of, you know, all those technicalities of the modern method, and thereby better to use the traditional method. So we have a both type of cases that are coming in the study.
So to answer the next question in the series, there is a question, a very interesting question. How does the rise, this is from Francis, how does the rise in traditional methods affect government's allocation of resources and strategies for family planning interventions in UP? And what is UP government's view on traditional method use, promoting or discouraging? And I'll come to Dr. Ram also for this question. But first, Ravi, your direct observation from UP.
Yeah, so I think, Francis, this is a debate, and this is unanswered until now. And that's why we went for this qualitative method, because sometimes the quantity gives you the number, but qualitative gives you more perspective. And here the perspective, what it is coming, as Professor Ram also suggested, is that if this use is happening with a better knowledge, knowing that, okay, if they do in certain days, it has a better efficacy, I think there is no need to discourage this method. So far as government is concerned, it is difficult that they take a call and they say that you use, because that is politically not correct. But yes, as a strategy, and as what I said, is that how the program is planning is to more encourage those who are new entrants, talk to them about the efficacy of the modern methods, say that how these traditional method may also land up with you the unplanned pregnancy. So I'll say that there is no clear-cut answer about the promoting and discouraging. But even if the traditional method users are there, we have to make them informed about what are the other side of the effect, and if they are able to manage it, if they are able to regulate their fertility behavior, then I think it would be hard, because it is clearly coming that if program is going to invest their energy in converting the modern method to the traditional method, it is going to be a hard task. And rather than doing that, the energy can be invested in something else, maybe with better counseling, promoting the other thing, etc.
I'm pretty sure last statement you wanted to mean traditional, converting traditional method into modern method. Yeah, and in Bihar also, by virtue of working on evidences in Bihar, I can also say that government of Bihar also trying to understand when traditional method is increasing, is it because of lack of information or anything else? So whether the traditional method use is because of lack of access or information. Professor Ram, I just want to know from you what your immense experience from other states and other things either corroborate or conflict on the observation of what Ravi said right now about UP.
Well, thank you. I think as far as conflict is concerned, I think it is a global.
Yeah.
Because at the global level, it is not being accepted. And we are trying to only propagate the modern method of contraception, which has a business orientation and I think that's one way. But also the generating the evidence, I think, is important. This study, what has indicated, need to be seen in two contexts, because you have a National Family Health Survey, which has become a Bible for each state government and central government. And what is the objective? Objective is to reduce the unmet need. And you see the NFHS, traditional method is out of all these, and then you say unmet need for sterilization is still very high in Uttar Pradesh. Now that's where the government comes. Government think that we need to provide the sterilization services because unmet need is very high. If I want to reduce the unmet need, and therefore these services or healthcare should take care of this section of the women. You see, and that is where I feel the conflict starts. And therefore, the evidence being generated, and I'm not very sure whether this survey also should ask the unmet need, measure the unmet need slightly different ways. Because I have been always saying that unmet need measure is not good measure to monitor the program. And we suggested, based on our Madhya Pradesh analysis after NFHS 2, that intention to use in next 1 year probably may be more helpful than unmet need the way we define. And therefore, I feel that government is not against or in favor. Probably they are in dilemma. What is the statistics being generated by researcher globally? You see, globally you are monitoring the program. Unmet need reduce karna hai, isn't it? Because you the demand satisfied, and in the denominator you have unmet need, and that if it is high, demand satisfied will be low. So see the global measurement, how it is being done. So the way unmet need is defined, demand satisfaction measurement is there. I think this conflict will be there. But for me, I think if the reproductive goal of the women is being met using the traditional method, she is being able to regulate the fertility and also achieve the desired number or size of the family. I think that is the best we could do. Let us see how government react or what government does, because they are in the global framework, and that need to be checked how to modify that global framework for this kind of measurement.
As we are running short of time, I would request all of you if we can spend 5 more minutes on this question answer. And there is a very important question come suggestion for you, Ravi. While congratulating the detailed work, Rajesh has asked that have you examined the drivers of switch from modern to contraceptive, traditional or traditional to modern, like any contraception failure or side effect or something? Have you looked at it?
Yeah, so I think the drivers of switch are largely coming from this qualitative piece, because that was not again part of the quantity survey. And the drivers of switch are coming, different thing which I spoke. Sometimes it is the context, the social context, the whole community norms. Sometimes it is coming as a reflection of role model, because within the community you have the other women who are successfully using this method. And so far as programmatic side, if I consider, definitely the frontline worker, the ASHA, the kind of counseling and other thing which she is supposed to do, she is not doing that. And some of the reasons mentioned, because we always expect these frontline workers to perform, but we never go back and try to understand the challenges what they face. So definitely those are some of the things. And maybe probably we would like to again sometimes discuss a detailed findings of the qualitative, where we also looked into how these supply side and demand side factors vary across those 4 geography, like the Jhansi and Mirzapur, where you have the low traditional method use. What are the different ways that ASHAs has adopted to kind of promote the modern method, which is not there in the thing. So definitely about the family planning, when we see these contextual things, the way the service delivery is concerned is also to be looked upon.
Thank you. We are at time, and for audience and everybody, the questions are there unanswered. We will share the answers over email, and we encourage all of you to share more questions on this, and we'll share the recording also. But just before closing this, the last thing from our side, Ravi, Professor Ram also asked, Arupendra also asked that, is there any geographic variation for, first of all, the traditional method use that we know it is, and then facility readiness and supply side factors in UP like we see for method use?
Yes, so it is there, and we were again when we were looking into the quantity data, we tried to see that whether these geographies where you have high, say, condom use, you have the more facility where it is available, it is there, or the geography, say, where you have the high sterilization, like Bundelkhand region, whether the availability is linked to that. So though it is showing that yes, availability has a linkages, but then the other question programmatically was that, is this the fact that those services are available, women are utilizing those services? So the cause and effect thing is need to be understood. And what we see, especially in the Bundelkhand, The facility readiness is much more better. You have the staff availability compared to the other where the staff gap was high, specifically the eastern region and the Tarai belt. And also you have the medical colleges, etc., where a provider can go and get the training, for the sterilization, etc. So we also see that as a flip side, that since you had the opportunity there, you have more system readiness, and thereby, maybe women are taking those services there compared to the eastern region or Tarai belt, where those service availability were lesser. But if we see this sampled facility, we do see that the availability has increased over the period of time. And that is one of the marker to say that while these geographic variation persists, but still, the women are know that what method they want to do. And that's what is coming from most of the qualitative narratives and narrations. So I'll stop here, and but happy to answer, further with the other numbers and data, I know if provided with the opportunity.
As a nice concluding remark, we have that in the chat from Shobha that we actually, this is a complex thing. We all know, yeah, we agree with you, Shobha, that it's not only unidirectional, because there are husbands' pressure for not using condom, putting the whole responsibility on women, and then the women has to prove the fecundity, and there is other aspects also. And given all these, avoiding side effects, avoiding any issue with the womanhood, there are different reasons for people kind of preferring, and then ultimately maybe using this inefficiently, ending up into the complexities of traditional method. All the discussion need to continue, and thanks to Ravi, Professor Ram, and the host of this particular session, Population Council and FPMLE Consortium, and all you participants for patiently hearing. I was so amazed to see the constancy of the number of the participants throughout this journey. We'll come back again soon with more interesting questions, and we'll answer back to each and every questions that you have shared on the chat and the recording of that. Thank you. Thank you all. Closing for today. Have a very nice evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.